The movie begins when Abigail Foster was 6 years old. Her father, Jonathan Foster, was taken from their home suspected to be infected during an epidemic of a mysterious illness. The night he was taken away, along with other people, he gave Abigail a necklace. The town was subsequently sealed off from the outside world by the government. Abigail, who is now a teenager, floats on her bed while she's sleeping, but is woken up when a scrunched-up note falls on the floor of her bedroom. A curfew is being imposed on the townspeople. Abigail reads the content of the note, which says one of her friends has been taken by Ian's gang. She goes to the town square where pictures of people that have been taken were hung. She goes to meet the gang at night during the town's curfew. She challenges the leader to a game in order to secure her friend's release. But while they were doing it, some of them get rounded up by masked inspectors and checked for an infection. One of the inspectors struggles with her at the rooftop of a building, so she ends up unmasking him to find that it's her father's friend Roy. She dreams about her dad calling Roy years ago. In the past, she asks her dad why he has many clocks. He tells her it's because he doesn't lose track of time. In the present day, Abigail's mom comes to her room to wake her up. She goes out to run some errands for her mom when she comes in contact with an inspector. She starts retreating, which seems to get the attention of the inspector, who starts chasing her. Another masked inspector tells the one after Abigail that he would go after her himself. Abigail's mom, Margaret, breaks something on the head of the inspector. Then they remove his mask to see that it's Roy again. Margaret panics, telling Abigail that they need to run away because they won't be forgiven for hitting an inspector. Abigail tells her that they have nowhere to go and that her father must be alive since Roy also is, because he was taken along with her dad. She tells Margaret that they are going to interrogate Roy so they can find Jonathan, but her mom isn't in support. Abigail asks Roy where her father is. He tells her that they had been separated and he had chosen to become an inspector or face deportation. He tells her Ethan Blake would know where her father is, so during a ceremony, Abigail sneaks out. She heads out to find Ethan, but she stumbles on some people being violently questioned by William Garrett, and she hides. She sneaks into Ethan's office where she checks his files, but just then he arrives, and she has to hide. He makes a call about deporting some people to a permanent detention center. Abigail hides inside his car's trunk. Ethan is ambushed on his way to the detention center. He is forced to get some people into the center. Abigail comes out of the trunk to see some infected people, including Ian, being taken away. She follows them and sees a door being opened where the infected are made to pass. Going back outside, there seems to be a battle going on, and she gets hit, which makes her lose her necklace. She is picked up by someone and placed into a truck and taken to the other side of her town. She remembers asking her father what was behind the town's boundary, but her dad rebukes her from talking about it. Instead, he tells her a story. She wakes up in a land filled with magicians where she meets Spencer. Spencer teaches new recruits how to use their powers. He tells her about the authorities using an epidemic as a cover to get rid of people with powers. He takes her to meet Marcus, who knows how to make potions. Abigail asks Marcus what happens to the people captured, and she is told that they are kept, but he doesn't know where. Abigail touches some device which seems to explode with power. Someone warns everyone of inspectors coming towards them, and the whole village starts to hide everything, completely stripping the place off, making it seem deserted with just a few people around it. The inspectors get there, but they don't stay long. Spencer persuades another man, Bale, to teach Abigail how to use her powers, though not enthusiastic about it, but he does it. Abigail meets Bale with a woman, Stella, and they both are talking about a revolution that is to take place in 2 days, but they don't have enough people since some of them had been captured. While they are talking, Abigail is looking around the place. She finds her dad's picture hanging up under the criminal section. He asks Abigail what she is doing there, and she tells him that she wants to learn how to use her powers so she can save her dad. Bale lets her know that he is teaching her so she can use her powers for their cause and that he doesn't care for her father. She tells him that she is going to go home and threatens to hand her to the inspector himself if she does. He picks a device telling Abigail to pick hers, which she does but is unable to use it. Bale uses his device to shoot blasts at her, which causes her to go flying to the floor. She goes back to Spencer, who teaches her about their different devices, which he calls an engine, which helps them project their powers in different forms. Abigail tells an oblivious Spencer that she is going home. She comes across Stella and Bale, who tell her that he had told her not to go home. They have an argument, and Abigail continues on her journey home, not caring what Bale has to say. Stella informs him of inspectors coming towards them. Bale snatches one of them to get information from him. Stella asks Bale why he cares if Abigail stays with them. She tells him that she can see how he looks at Abigail, which Bale denies. She tells him to make sure she doesn't come back and that Abigail's father is their enemy. He tells her that it is not her decision, and she replies that she has always supported him and that they belong together. Bale tells her that he doesn't feel that they are together anymore. When Abigail gets home, she goes to a mirror which she had seen her dad hide some things behind, and she opens it to find some papers with some kind of device. Her mom comes back home, and she explains that the epidemic is just a story the town leaders are using to take people with powers away. She tells her mom that her amulet helped restrain her powers and it also had saved her when she had been shot by an inspector. She tells her mom that she was going to go find her dad. While leaving, she tells her mom that she had met some good people who were planning something big, but she feels that they are making it, but she doesn't know how to prove it. Her mom tells her to follow her instincts, and she tells her to be careful. Abigail leaves. She approaches Roy, showing him some papers with drawings on them. He tells her that it's the fortress where people with gifts are kept. She shows him the device she found. He tells her that the device contains a map of how to get to the place the gifted ones are kept, which is outside the city. She realizes that her father had helped build the fortress. She asks him why the captured are not killed, and she gets told that if they are killed then the powers would go back to the city and someone else. She tells him to show her the tunnel that leads out of the city, and he tells her that it's dangerous because there are unknown dangers outside the city. She tells him to meet her back there some minutes before midnight. Abigail goes back to Bale's side of the city. She overhears them planning to start the revolution the next day. She interrupts them, telling them she knows where the captured are being taken to and they should go there. But Bale replies that he is the one giving orders there, and if she doesn't like it she can leave. Bale accuses her of wanting to go save her dad, who had worked with the inspectors. He orders her to leave. Abigail is tricked by Roy, who happens to have brought her into a trap. She meets Garrett, who shows her the amulet her dad had given to her, which helps restrain people's powers. He offers for her to come work with him, but she refuses. Garrett orders Roy to kill him, which Roy refuses to do, thereby making Garrett shoot him. Garrett then orders Ethan to kill Abigail, but Bale jumps out from nowhere, shooting at Ethan, Garrett, and the inspectors present. Garrett isn't taken completely out because he shoots at Bale, then he uses the device to take hold of his body, and he was about to do more damage when Abigail shoots him. Abigail drags Bale back to his base, and he gets his wounds treated by Marcus. Abigail sees a drawing of herself on Bale's table. He wakes up, and they talk about Abigail wanting them to go to the other side of the city to save the detained people, but he insists on them not going because he thinks they won't want to come back, so no one would want to save the city. She shows him the device her dad had left for her. He tells her not to use it, telling her about there being fairies in existence there before, but they have been forced to work for the government. He tells her that he hopes she changes her mind. Abigail tells him that their paths are different. Abigail wakes up the next day after having a dream of her father telling her when she was younger that she needs to find true friends to overcome obstacles. Abigail heads towards finding the tunnel while Bale continues with his plan for a revolution. Bale and his men break down the gates, but suddenly Abigail runs up to them to tell them that it's a trap, that there were a large number of inspectors waiting for them, so Bale calls for them to retreat. The inspectors and their numbers start chasing and shooting them. Bale hands Abigail to Marcus, so he heads back shooting at the inspectors. Abigail uses her powers to shoot at the inspectors, throwing a few of them off. He shoots at the sky, which causes a colorful blast, but he is caught. Garrett comes together with Stella, who had betrayed them. She tells him that she was only trying to save them. Back at the base, Bale's men are packing up to leave since they had lost, but Abigail convinces them to follow her to the tunnel by releasing a fairy which happens to be contained in the device her father had kept for her. This gets them to follow her. Spencer opts to stay there, not wanting to leave his home, so they bid him goodbye. While they were leaving, Abigail waits at a corner where she sees inspectors march into their base, but just then there's an explosion. Abigail and the men head for the tunnel. They open a door to find that it's a flying ship that would take them out of the city. They subdue the men they find inside and find Bale and some other people restrained inside the ship. They release them, and Bale asks Norman to figure out how to get the ship flying, which he does. Abigail fixes the device with the fairy into a keyhole, fitting it, which releases the fairy outside who gives them direction. She talks to Bale, showing doubt, wondering if the whole thing is a trap. He encourages her by telling her that she has made all this possible by following her heart, giving them new hope. He holds her hands, telling her to concentrate and to trust her power. She is able to form a ball of power with his help. All of a sudden, the ship pierces through something, and the engine stops. They see the fortress, so they land there. On getting there, Bale pretends to be a guard and the others pretend to be prisoners. Bale and the others hijack the fortress. They are told to spread out and find Jonathan. Abigail sees something up which seems to be sucking up purple smoke. She goes to free a prisoner, but Marcus tells her not to, that the prisoner is barely alive. They don't find Abigail's father there, which saddens Abigail. Marcus shoots at the device sucking up the prisoner's powers, but it doesn't do anything, so Bale tells them that they would need all their powers to take down the device. Bale sees the inspectors heading towards them. Abigail gets a clue from her dad, which is to combine different Engine's beams together in one beam to take out the device sucking up people's powers. Norman assists her. Bale warns them about the inspectors coming after them, and she tells him of the tips her dad had left, but she asks him for time, so he agrees to stall them enough to give her time. The inspectors get there with Stella and Garrett, so a fight breaks out. Abigail goes back to her memory to ask her dad for help when it seems joining the engines wasn't working. Jonathan hugs her, and she asks him where he is. He shows her a mirror from which he sees Garrett talking to her father about making a device to get rid of the people with power. Garrett threatens him with Abigail, but Jonathan uses a glove-like device to eat away at his body, making sure Garrett can't use him. He tells her that he is always with her, and that she just needs to look within herself to find her powers. Back in the present, Abigail tells Norman that her dad was gone, and she tells him what he had told her. Garrett and Bale are fighting with swords, and none of them is surrendering anytime soon. Abigail touches the mirror, her face as a little girl is shown on it, and then her powers seem to activate. Garrett stabs Bale with a dagger, and Stella covers Bale while he was trying to shoot him with an arrow, thereby getting shot in the back. A blast is sent towards the device upwards, and it explodes. All the powers seem to spread out everywhere, even through the town. Bale's men seem to get energized, so they kill the inspectors. Bale kills Garrett. Bale tells Abigail that they should go back home before kissing her. Norman starts the ship so they can go home, and Marcus drags the wheel of the ship. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. I would also appreciate a comment because it helps like you can't even imagine. It's a new channel and every bit of support counts.